Welcome to today's John's Journal. And in this episode, we'll be going a little bit further into Nicholas Cresswell, and he starts to at least prepare himself for his adventure within an adventure. He has multiple ones of those. And I'll be touching on the compare and contrast between a journal like Nicholas Cresswell's and Peter Kalm's, which I think is a very interesting connection. We are at February 28th, 1775. And he says, this is February 28th. This is the last day tea is allowed to be drank on the continent by act of Congress. The ladies seem very sad about it. I don't think it's something that we just don't talk about that very much. He at least thought that it was against the law to drink tea after the fact. I'm not sure how anybody would, really deal with that. And that's, February 1775. That's still a long time from Declaration of Independence and, when we think the war is starting. And you can see here over and over again, he talks about the war footing that's going on in the colonies. March 1st, Mr. Findlay, a gentleman who had been at Illinois, advises me not to set out till the latter end of April, then go down the Ohio with the flood. I believe there will be some difficulty in persuading anyone to go with me in this place. Thursday, Thursday, March 9th, a good week later. These 8 days have made it my business to find out a person proper to go with me, but I can find none that are willing to undertake the journey. I intend to go to see Mr. Gibbs as the likeliest place to get a man for my purpose. March 16th, so another almost a week later. Employed this week in preparing for my journey, got some silver trinkets made by a silversmith in town by the direction of Mr. Findlay, who has been an Indian trader, and has given me some general instructions concerning the trade. We skip down to the 21st. Preparing for my journey, got my silver packed up in as small a compass or as small a package as possible. Mr. Findlay advises me to trade with a party of Delawares that have settled on the Wabash River for beaver skins. Mr. Findlay gave me a letter of credit to Mr. Richard Winston at Kaskaskia Village, Illinois. Very, very interesting to me personally because the Delaware settling on the Wabash River is not very far from here at all. He could have been talking about Weatnan, which is modern-day Lafayette, West Lafayette, Illinois, or Indiana, or even further up the Wabash, getting closer and closer to here. So very, very interesting. Maybe all the way up to Fort Wayne area. Again, super close. So. Let's see, Thursday, March 23rd, 1775. Bought me a gun, powder, and lead. Let's see, the next day, Mr. Henley, Mr. Call, Mr. Richard Harrison spent the evening at Mr. Kirk's. A dispute arose about politics between Mr. Kirk and Captain Budcombe. They differ in sentiments and abused each other most unmercifully. It is most absurd for individuals to quarrel about state affairs. Both of them remain obstinate. Saturday, March 25th, wrote to my father, intend to set out for Mr. Gibbs tomorrow. Mr. Kirk and Captain refused to be reconciled. Memo, never to enter into political disputes with Mr. Kirk. He has a rebellious principles. Good friend of his, rebellious principles. Monday, March 27th, went with Captain Budcombe to Mr. Canby, who informs me Mr. Edward Snickers is the likeliest person to get me a guide. Gave me a letter of introduction to Mr. Snickers. I wonder if Mr. Snickers invented the candy bar. Anyway, Thursday, April 4th, 1775, met with Mr. Gibbs and George Rice. Mr. Gibbs recommends him as an honest man and a good hunter. Agreed to give him 500 acres of land to go with me. He is going to his brother's near Fort Pitt with 2 horses and intends to set out tomorrow. This is very lucky. Bought some blankets, gunpowder, lead, flints, camp kettle, frying pan, tomahawk, with several other necessities. Got letters of introduction to several gentlemen in the neighborhood of Fort Pitt. From Mr. John Neville. Gave my boots and spurs to the care of Mr. Gibbs till my return. Must wear leggings. These are pieces of coarse woolen cloth wrapped around the leg and tied below the knee with a string to prevent snakes biting you. So this is sort of the end of the part I wanted to cover today in Nicholas Creswell. But it's really interesting. Nicholas Creswell's journal is important for multiple reasons. Number one, he gives us the concept here about what's happening with people who want to go into the backcountry of Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, Illinois, in this time frame of the 1770s, 1780s, probably all the way into the 1790s. It's going to be similar. So what he's doing, how he's preparing himself, what he needs. We can see the things that he thinks are important. He's got gunpowder, lead, flints, all that, blankets, camp kettle, frying pan, tomahawk. And then he says several other necessities. But we know it's like you have to take these things if you're going to survive in this setting. And then, the talking about his individual pieces of clothing. And here we see he's talking about leggings. Later on, we'll see that he'll talk about something like hunting shirts versus sort of more Native American garb. So if you want to not be looked upon as with such a jaundiced eye, you'll wear particular items of clothing and not other ones because they say they mean things on the frontier. The great part about Nicholas Creswell's journal here is that he talks about himself, what he's feeling, the reasons why he's doing some of these things, and we know that the picture we're getting is painted by his personality, what he intends. He talks about politics and not getting into political discussion. So there's a lot going on here, and we can get an idea about the person as well as what he's judging or giving a description of. So, we know he's interested in some things and not others. Now, compare that with something like Peter Kalm's journal, which is much larger, and there's a lot more information. He goes into some of the same kinds of places, not the same places, but kinds of places in his sort of journal, because it is dated day by day, same kind of idea here. He is just as much, or maybe even just a little bit more of an outsider. So again, they're a good judge about giving us a picture from somebody's point of view that isn't from that place, which is very nice. We're not from that place, so they're hopefully going to see some of the same kinds of things that tell us about them. Whereas somebody who lives in a spot, they don't know what you don't know. So they don't know what to describe to you. They don't know how to describe where they live. But Peter Kalm is attacking his journal from the scientific point of view, and he tries to be a very neutral storyteller or a describer of what he sees. The problem in that is that we don't know where he's coming from. We don't know enough about Peter Kalm sometimes in his writings to understand, how to interpret what he's describing. And of course, we also don't want just bald, unadorned description of something. Sometimes we do want some interpretation to that. We don't get as much of that in Peter Kalm. It's still massively important for understanding the 18th century colonies and North America and what there is and how the differences are in different places. And Peter Kalm was extremely good at that, and it's really, really well worth digging into. But it's a lot drier, and there isn't as much of his personal story. Occasionally, we get more of that, but it's not nearly like Nicholas Creswell's journal. So, while I really like Peter Kalm, and there's some just amazing nuggets that you'll find in here, you got to wade through a lot more descriptions of trees and birds, or usually trees. Trees, sometimes, geology at times, and you're thinking, okay, well, this isn't helpful to me. You flip to this part and he's talking about swallows. And, that might be really helpful if you're studying birds today and you want to know he's seeing something in some place that we don't see it today. Whether that has changed a lot, but generally, we're concerned about people culture, and Peter Kalm does go into that and tell us about that, but not in the same kind of way. We still have to understand who the people are to really get a grip on what their writings actually mean to us, or should mean to us, how we need to interpret them. So it's nice to get a picture of the person so we can get a handle on that. I think it's interesting that every single one of these kinds of journals that I pick up, and the more I'm kind of preparing and thinking about this series, the more I realize there's just journal and book and book and book upon book to really dig into. I started with a stack of like 10, and every time I turned around, I was thinking of another 2 or 3, and pretty soon it's like, oh, I can reference and cross-reference here journals and journal-like readings, probably 50 or 100 different titles, and it's like, wow, this is getting big. This is getting, but I want to stay focused and concentrated. I don't want to just go crazy with a lot of those kinds of things. But I'll just kind of refer to them as we go through, like today. It's like compare and contrast Peter Kalm. And it's funny because Peter Kalm does end up in some very, very similar situations. Nicholas Cresswell is in situations where the reason why people don't want to go with him is because the frontier at this particular time, there's a war that's going on. The rumblings of war, the pre-war that's going on. And the Native Americans are always used by one side or the other to, kind of proxy war going on there. And that happens, it'll happen in this setting, kind of 3 different things. You're going to have Native Americans that are working with the British. You'll have Native Americans that are working with the Americans. And you'll have sort of leave us alone Native Americans in this. It's like we don't want to be part of either one of those situations. And Nicholas Cresswell will become very close to situations that are very dangerous, but nothing really happens to him. And Peter Kalm is in the same situation. He's traveling, and again, this is in a time that's kind of pre-French and Indian War, rumblings are going on there, and he's going to be going through areas where very hostile Native Americans are at, and he'll pass right by them and miss them entirely. And he talks about that a little bit. So it's amazing to dig into the journals, sit in a cabin like this. I just did a live stream for the Patreon folks, and people were asking about, do I get a chance to just hang out, by the fire and enjoy it here in the cabin? And this is one of those circumstances where I do get to do that. This sort of forces me in journal reads to, as I prepare for this, thinking about it, coming in, starting the fire, and then of course sitting here. I'm a person who likes nice warm fires. I don't like to be cold, and some people, complain because I like it warmer than most. So I'm really enjoying this. On a morning like this, I can come in, I can start up the fire, and it just warms up my whole back. I love the way this fireplace works out. I never thought it would be the way it is. Really enjoy how it works out. And I do enjoy coming along on these journal reads with you. I hope you're enjoying them. I want to thank you for being part of what we do here on Townsends Plus. It helps make it possible for us to make the other kinds of content we make, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much for your wonderful support. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of John's Journal, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching.